Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Russell Jackman, aka Buddy Sotelo. We haven't talked about that for a while, have we?
No, aka Mr. Kidney Stone.
Mr. Kidney Stone. Yeah. Hey, I gotta take my hat off to you, Mr. Russell Jackman. The poor guy is trying to pass a kidney stone, but the most important thing in his life right now is Sports Econ 101.
Yeah, well, at least it takes my mind off of it. At least it's for another 40 minutes. I won't be thinking about, a BB-sized pellet that's hanging out in my system and trying to work its way through. But
yeah, we don't have to get too graphic here, but I think anybody who has had that kind of pain kind of knows what you're talking about. And just to brighten your day even more, today's trivia theme is NBA players.
Good. I think I can handle that. I think I can handle it.
And that's our theme because every week we ask a sports trivia question at 3 commercial breaks. And we always want to see if the audience knows the answer to these questions. Sometimes they're easy and sometimes they're hard. Want to talk about a few things when we get back. The Clippers, for whatever reason, James Harden just can't seem to make a team better, which is kind of strange. But I guess maybe he's just a little bit too much of a one-man show. What do you think?
Oh yeah, he's a problem child, and I'm awfully glad that no team I've ever rooted for has ever had him as
that's true.
Player.
All right. Also, the 49ers look like they're back on track. Specifically, the defense. Jaguars only had 3 points, and they were one of the hottest teams coming in.
Yes, but they made some big changes, and especially picking up Chase Young. You got to say that paid off.
Absolutely. Okay, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with Russell Jackman. So James Harden joins the Clippers. Let's see, he started off, I think, with OKC, right? Then didn't he go to, was it Houston?
Houston.
Then Brooklyn.
Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia. That's right. Then Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, then Philadelphia.
Yeah. Okay. And what's interesting is when he was originally with OKC, there was Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. I mean, you got 3 potential Hall of Famers on one team, and they still just couldn't get it done.
Well, they got to the NBA Finals, so at least that's something that Harden hasn't done ever since. So that's significant. Problem with Harden is that he really monopolizes the ball. I mean, Harden wishes he played in a league that had more than one basketball playing at one time. If the NBA had like 4 basketballs in play at one time, Harden would be in a perfect universe. Now,
he's still going to be a Hall of Famer, though, don't you think?
Oh yeah, he's going to make the Hall of Fame, but I have a feeling he may be one of those Karl Malone types. Or Charles Barkley types where people are going to say, yeah, he's great, but ... or Iverson, that they never actually, or Reggie Miller, one of these guys that got a lot of points in their career but didn't wind up winning a title. He's not a great team player. He is a great individual scorer, but as time is moving on, he's losing that ability to score, and dominate people just all by himself. And I will also say this, that in the early days of James Harden, if you got within 40 feet of him, they would call a foul.
Yeah.
And the refs are getting tired. I think even the refs are getting tired of their own act. And they're like saying, you know what, James, you've got to earn some of these foul calls. As a Warriors fan, there were just some times where he would dominate us because he would go to the line 20 times in a game. And he's not doing that anymore. He's just a spot up shooter. He has great ball handling abilities. He's got great passing skills, but the way he does that is by holding on to the ball for 22 of the 24 seconds and then throws it to a guy who either has to make a shot instantly and he'll get credit for the assist, or he puts up a terrible shot because he doesn't have any time to make a shot. So Harden really puts people in no other position. If they don't make a shot, the possession's gonna end. And
I still remember, gosh, I don't know how many years ago this was, when it was getting really, it was, I think, just before the NBA finals. And let's see who, I think he was playing with Houston at the time. And it was a backcourt, the 18 seconds, right?
8 seconds.
8 seconds. 18 seconds. I'm thinking of when the clock hits 16. Oh, there we go. Okay, too many things going on today. Yeah, the 8 seconds. And I remember the announcer going, "It's going to be an 8-second foul," and sure enough, the turnover. For some reason, it just reminds me when I played just pickup games at the YMCA in my younger days. There was this nice, all of us are, maybe 6 foot, maybe 6'1". Well, there was this guy who was probably about 6'6". So, he kind of towered over the rest of us. And he played apparently professionally in Spain at one point. And he was still fairly young. So he must have just retired. And he was good, but he realized that he was so much better than the rest of us that every time he got the ball, he would never pass it. And it was very frustrating because you ended up not wanting to be on his team rather than going, "Hey, we got the best guy on the team." Because, the more you, as long as you win, you keep playing, right? That's, how these pickup games work. And at some point, you go, "Oh, I really don't want to play with this guy." So what a few of us ended up doing was when he was finally on our team,
huh?
we never passed to him.
Yeah, that's called freezing out.
And the other part of it was when on defense, because we knew he would never pass it, you'd have 4 out of the 5 guys get around him, and he'd get really frustrated because he would end up getting fouled or he just couldn't do anything. But that's what happens when you have a ball hog.
You should have taken up tennis, because if that, or golf, because then in that instance it's all up to you, and you can be a one-man squad if you play golf or if you play tennis. But basketball is a team sport, and you've got to get along with your team. If you don't get along with your team can do plenty of things to make sure you don't succeed.
Yeah, and don't forget bowling, another bowling, individual sport.
Yes.
Or ping pong. Yes. Yeah.
Although bowling, a lot of times you're on a team. A lot of times in bowling, you're on a team, and the rest of your guys can just throw gutter balls. And if they don't mind losing to send a message, then people sometimes will do that.
Oh, they call it sandbagging.
And in the NBA, it's an even bigger thing, because if you aren't getting any points and if you aren't getting any possessions and one guy's hogging the ball, it's also killing your ability to get statistics that you're going to then turn around and use for your own contract.
Okay, so you have a lot of playing time, but no points.
Right, because one guy is hogging the ball the entire time. And as I said, there's only one basketball. If James Harden could have his own personal ball and the rest of the team have their ball, then I think.
But don't you think that the coaches and even the other teammates are telling him this?
Have you not seen James Harden? Is this the first time that you've watched?
No, I mean, of course I've watched them, but at some point,
he is not someone that listens to what anyone says, which is why he's been moved from team to team. He had a great situation in Philadelphia. Would you agree? I mean, the scenario in Philadelphia was one where he probably should have succeeded very well. They didn't have a dominant ball handler. He led the league in assists last year. And a lot of people don't know that James Harden did. But unfortunately, he belly ached his way out of Philadelphia, and now he's back in the Clippers, which has Russell Westbrook there, who is also a major ball handler. They've got Paul George, they've got Kawhi Leonard, who are major scorers. What is his role there?
Yeah. Well, if you sit him on the bench, maybe he'll learn a lesson.
then the lesson that's going to be learned is for the Clippers that are going to be paying him like 20-30 million a year.
Yeah.
Just have him sit on the bench. What good is that? Now, I was really surprised when the Clippers wanted to take him, and considering the Clippers are one of the worst teams right now in the league, I think it bodes ill for his future, for Kawhi's future, for Paul George's future, and for Westbrook's future. I think that team is going to be scattered to the four winds at the end of the season.
And it's too bad for them because all those players you mentioned are all really good players.
Yeah, but it's LA, so I don't mind. I don't mind seeing
I know, so you don't care. All right, you ready to go to our first commercial trivia question?
Oh, we're already there. Wow.
Okay, we're already there. Okay. So Bill Russell holds the record for the most NBA championships won as a player. How many did he win during his career?
Okay.
All right.
Player and player coach, right?
Just as a player, we're talking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right, because he was a coach also, but this is
he was also a player coach. He was also one of the few player coaches.
That's true. Well, if as long as he was a player, that's considered in this, right? Because you can be both. We're just not counting if you're just a coach, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sort of like with Steve Kerr, if that was a question, you can't count him when he was with the Warriors as a coach, just as a player with San Antonio and the Bulls.
Understood.
Okay. That's our trivia question. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. Well, we're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with Kidney Stone. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That wasn't very nice of me. Russell Jackman. Yes, we're all while we're doing the show, he is like a trooper. I gotta say, he's probably in pain, but the most important thing.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm just really tired from being in the hospital last night. But this show is not just a fun thing for me. I consider it an obligation. I wouldn't leave you hanging.
I like that, and it's therapeutic.
Yeah, it is, and especially because the Niners won. I don't want to. I've had to sit here the last 3 weeks and give excuses for the Niners. Listen, now they finally won, so I have something nice to talk about.
Okay, but before we get into the 49ers, let's answer our trivia question. So we're talking NBA players. Bill Russell holds the record for the most NBA championships won as a player. How many did he win during his career?
11.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So let's move on to the 49ers. Holy smokes. Are they back on track? I mean, I don't think they. When's the last time they won? Wait, when's the last time the defense made it so that the offense, the other team only scored 3 points?
Well, that was when they clobbered Dallas, when they beat the tar out of Dallas.
Wait, did Dallas only score 3 points?
No, they scored more, but it was
okay.
Because the Niners scored 40, so the margin of victory was about the same, and it was domination is a domination, whether it's 30. Plus, the Niners should have gotten one more touchdown to McCaffrey.
That
was right in his hands, and he just. I mean, it was a tough situation because Jacksonville absolutely 100% knew that the Niners were, once they were in first down and goal territory, the Niners were going to put pretty much all their plays on McCaffrey's shoulders. And while he had a great game with 94 yards and 40 yards receiving, he just couldn't catch that one final ball to get in the end zone. Now, the good news for Niner fans is that hopefully that sparks CMC to want to go another 18 games scoring touchdowns. It's time for a new streak.
Well, also he can't blame anybody. It's not like they didn't get the ball enough. So it's
oh no, and he had it. They had it. I mean, it was a great defensive play to keep him from, but it's very hard when a defense knows, especially in a short yardage situation, a goal situation, that the ball is going to go to a guy 3 or 4 times, in an offensive set to make it into the end zone. They absolutely knew that it was coming to CMC, and they were prepared. And
like a CMC, I like that.
No, it's just easier to say sometimes.
It is.
Than McCaffrey, it's too many syllables. CMC, you just go right there and nice and easy. But one thing I was also going to point out was this weekend put the foot in football.
Oh, for the kicking of the last, was it six games actually that decided by at the last minute, right?
7 with last night's game.
Oh, I thought it was 5 plus the 1. It was.
Maybe it is. Maybe it was 5. Maybe it is
anyway,
6.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because when you talk to people who are soccer fans, they go, we're really football because you kick the ball all the time. You're not supposed to use your hands.
Sure.
They say, why do you call your game football? And you say, well, at least a quarter of the time, most of the time, it winds up to a kicker. But when punting, back and forth,
that's true.
All that stuff. But this week really put the foot in football.
It sure did.
The kickers really were the highlights, other than in the Niners game where it was a total blowout. But so many games were that close. I mean, it was. I'm sure that the sale of Rolaids went through the roof.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! It's the last night's game. We're recording this show Tuesday after the Bills Denver game. And oh man, what's going on with the Bills? Mistake after mistake, and then
what's going on with Denver? What's going on with Denver? They're the hottest team in football right now.
Yeah, they went from.
Who would have thought that?
Yeah,
they looked so bad in the first 4 games, and I was thinking they're the worst team in football.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden it's like they Popeye eats the spinach, and all of a sudden they jump up to attention, and they flex their bicep, and they see a tank, an image of a tank inside their bicep or whatever, like Popeye used to do.
Yeah.
And
Russell Wilson, it's like, I mean, he wasn't looking too good in the beginning, and
no,
he definitely used his legs last night, and he was looking pretty good.
One of the biggest in-season turnarounds I've ever seen.
For
a quarterback. Especially because they didn't sub him out. He wasn't injured or anything like that. He just played terrible.
Yep.
And now he's playing some of his best football in his career in just 3 games, small sample size.
Yeah.
But
and that's the thing. It's like, what do you think was going on with Brock Purdy? Because it's like during that 3-game stretch, he just looked awful.
I'll tell you exactly what was going on. 1, no Trent Williams, and don't discount that.
Yeah.
Because Trent Williams is a Hall of Famer offensive lineman, and you lose a guy like that has a huge effect on the team.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Second was the loss of Debo. And people will say, well, Brock Purdy's only good because he's got all those weapons around him. But that's a stupid thing to say, because of course your quarterback is only going to be as good as the weapons around him, unless he's someone like Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson's capable of running, a bunch of yards all by himself. You're going to wind up needing those weapons. And Brock Purdy grew up with those weapons around him, and when you take out Debo, you take out Trent Williams, what happens is that then, the team becomes a lot less effective, because then you have to take George Kittle, and Kittle has to do the pass blocking. Okay. So you lose him as an offensive threat. So then you really only have Christian McCaffrey and or CMC and Ayuk as your main focuses on offense, which the teams can start taking away, and covering and double covering. And when CMC doesn't have Trent Williams helping to open holes for him on the offensive line, he's less effective. And so Brock just suddenly had, 3 weapons taken away from him, basically, or 4 weapons taken away from him with the loss of those 2 guys. You go, well,
but do you think there's that much of a difference between like a first string and a second string?
Yes.
Okay.
When you're talking guys like Trent, and you're talking guys like Debo, there isn't just replacing those guys. Debo is so flexible and
Yeah.
gives so many options that even if he doesn't get the ball, he's causing a huge distraction for the defense on the other side. Now, the other factor is the fact that the Niners defense got better. So when your defense gets better, you get more time on the field as a quarterback, and you're not having to play from behind. So the pressure isn't there for you to have to make amazing throws, but you also have more time on the field to get your rhythm going, your offensive rhythm going, instead of 3 and out, 3 and out. And so the fact that the Niners picked up Chase Young might be the thing that gets them a Super Bowl victory this year, because their pass rush was just not good enough. And I was just having a discussion on Facebook. The guy was telling me, yeah, but before in the 3-game loss, the corners and the safeties didn't look good. And the fact is, corners and safeties won't look good if you don't have a pass rush. It's a double-edged sword, that if you can't get a pass rush going, then your corners are going to be out there for 6 or 7 seconds, and they're going to give up big plays because it's impossible, or they're going to wind up getting holding, or pass interference, because they've had to be out on the field that long per play. But when a quarterback only has 2 or 3 seconds to throw, suddenly your corners look pretty good because they don't get challenged much. Or when there's a sack, or a defensive pressure that makes the quarterback have to run or scramble and throw a bad throw, then suddenly your corners and safeties look a lot better.
Yeah.
So I think, and it all has a huge effect when you get a fumble, you get an interception, then Brock Purdy comes back on the field with a short field to work with the fans going crazy. In fact, it sounded like there were almost as many Niner fans in Jacksonville as there were Jaguar fans.
And that's 3,000 miles away. It's not like going down to LA.
Yeah, no, well, I think there's also just a local contingency of fans that are in Jacksonville that, let's face it, for up until this year, Jacksonville was last year, Jacksonville's such a bad team. I'm not surprised that their visitors had as many fans.
No, that's true. Hey, we're going to go to our second commercial trivia question. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. So we already asked the question about Bill Russell holds the record for the most NBA championships won as a player, and the answer was 11, as you correctly said. Question: who is in second place behind Bill Russell for most championships won as a player? How many, and who is the player? All right, that's our trivia question. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101 will be right back. Don't touch that dial.
That's a tough one.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman. Our second trivia question: who is in second place behind Bill Russell for the most championships won as a player? We're talking NBA, of course.
That's a tough one because the record books don't usually show second place on stuff like that.
Okay, first of all, give me the number.
Well, my guess, and this really is a guess now, is Bob Cousy.
No, but you know what? You're close. And the reason I say, what's that?
Havlicek?
No, that you're also you're still close. Now, first of all, what's how many is the number? So
I was going to say 8.
No, it's actually 10. So Russell had 11, and this guy had 10.
10.
Okay, now I'll get the reason I said close when you said Cousy and Havlicek is he also played with Russell, because you got to figure someone's going to have to play with Russell in order to win 10 championships.
Right.
It's not somebody. It's not. You'll probably know the name, but it's not somebody you think about a lot.
Bobby Jones?
No, close. Sam Jones.
Sam Jones.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll give you credit. All you had to say was Jones, and we would have given you credit. And
in Jeopardy, you're allowed to just say somebody's last name and get away with it. So
that's right, exactly. And you're gonna love the third trivia question, because you're gonna get it even before I finish the question. That's how much you'll love it.
Those are good trivia questions I like. Instead of, and you still had to go back to the 60s to ask me a trivia question. I always like I prefer stuff that's within my lifetime or 10
Okay,
years.
well, yeah, no, this one will be within the last 10 years. So you'll,
Very
yeah,
good.
but like I
Very
said,
good.
it wouldn't matter. As soon as I even start the question, you're going to
Very
know
good.
the
Now
answer.
I'm gonna throw a topic out at you and want to
Okay,
see what your thought is.
all right.
Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, wow. Is
And what do
suspension
you
for
have to say
how many
about that?
games? Was it three
Three
games?
games.
Three
Three
games.
games, but they're at the most critical time of the year.
Yeah.
The 3 games that he can't coach are at the most critical 3 games of
So
the season.
what goes on with stuff like that? Is it just like they don't know the rules, or they're just trying to skirt them
He
all
knows the rules. He
the
knows the rules. And did you hear like the details of him hiring a student that like specialized in hacking
time? Yeah.
codes? And like he had this student go to the practices and watch the hand signals, and like the kid specializes as
Espionage.
espionage and a cipher expert, and got him to translate. It's expressly written in the college rules that you're not allowed to do that.
No cheating.
Stealing signals is express. It's not like baseball where it's an unwritten rule. This is
Yeah.
actually a written rule that Harbaugh knew he was violating, so that he
Now,
could
so,
take advantage.
now, when a player gets traded from one team to another, I guess what the new team, what the old team does is they change the signals a bit.
Yeah, you got to change the signals. That's up to you to do that. You have to do that, and they're supposed to change signals pretty much every game or every couple games.
Can you imagine how hard that's going to be really difficult to keep? Is this was this November 3rds, or was this October 3rds?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's part of the challenge, but it's still that Jim Harbaugh had to take that shortcut. He's already having a great season, but it's going to, like Houston, like the Houston Astros of 2017. People are always going to look at Harbaugh and say, well, was your season that good this year because you were a great coach, or is it because you were cheating?
Good point.
And I wonder, do you think this will affect any move for Harbaugh to go to the pros back again?
Oh, back again. Well, a lot of these guys like to stay in college because they make a lot of money in there. I mean, sure, they can make a lot in the pros, but there's something about college that they seem to do better in college. It's hard for some reason. It's hard for them to go. Of course, Harbaugh did start as in the pros to begin with, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to taint them that much, especially if they wait a couple of years. People seem to forget that stuff.
See, I think it really poisons his ability to go to the pros. He already was not. I mean, look at how long he's been at Michigan, which is a lot. I think 6 years, which is a lot longer than I thought he could last.
Yeah.
I thought he would wear his.
Is there talk about him going into the pros again?
Oh yeah, there's talk about him going to the pros every year. For all those 6 years, there was talk about that. And I think there's a reason that the pros have always sort of said, thanks, but no thanks with Harbaugh. I mean, there's always 4 or 5 coaching vacancies every year.
It could have been just because of his last 3 calls with Kaepernick in the Super Bowl.
There's that, and there's the constant ego stroking that has to happen with Jim Harbaugh to make him happy. He just is so egotistical and makes everything so much about himself that a lot of pro teams are turned off by that. They don't want a coach that thinks he's more exciting and a bigger name than any of the athletes that are on the team.
Well, do you remember when he played for the Bears?
Yes.
And do you remember Ditka? There was one specific episode, and you got to go back in time to look at it, where Ditka just had a conniption fit and threw down his clipboard, and he was just yelling at Harbaugh because apparently Harbaugh decided to call an audible, and Ditka wasn't having any of it. And Harbaugh, he was a young guy then. He definitely knew his place. But I guess as you get older and you have a little success and stuff, you just kind of make it about yourself, which that should never happen.
Yeah, and I don't know if that makes for a good pro coach. That's
Oh,
someone that into himself, that maybe that's not something. But then, there's a good question that if Michigan doesn't win a title this year, maybe Michigan also looks and says, he's good, but he's not good enough to get us over the hump. It's my thought about Jim Harbaugh is that Jim Harbaugh is the ultimate B plus coach. He is or an A minus coach. He
mhm.
can beat coaches that are not very good to average coaches, but great coaches will always be able to outcoach him. That just was the way he was in the pros.
Like
He
his
could
brother.
beat, yeah, his brother. He could never beat his brother. He couldn't beat Tom Coughlin. He
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
beat Belichick when Belichick had Tom Brady there. He just could not get his team to perform on a higher level than the best teams in the league. He could get them to perform in a B plus A minus level, which is great, and you'll win 12 games a season. You'll win 13 games a season, but it won't get you to it won't win you a Super Bowl. And I think a lot of teams are ultimately afraid of picking him up for that reason alone, and then
Yeah.
you add the fact that now he's in a convicted cheater. A lot of
Yeah.
teams are I think going to be afraid of adding him to the roster and making him putting him in charge and giving him all the power that he absolutely demands. So,
So what does Michigan do? Just they just let him go and then he goes into no man's land? Okay,
that's a
he's
really
gotta get
big
picked up.
question.
He's gotta
There'll
get
probably be another. I think there'll be another college team that will be desperate enough to
sure.
pick him up. You look at Deion Sanders
Yeah, I
as
was
a
just
good
thinking of him.
example.
Yeah.
He of course he's come way back down to earth since people were crowning him a future college champion in
Mhm.
Colorado, and now nobody taught. I don't think anyone's mentioned Deion Sanders' name other than myself in the last
For
month.
month, yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah,
Hey,
so
can I shift for just a quick second?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the A's looks like they are headed to Vegas.
Yeah,
And then what
yeah. I mean,
happens to Oakland? They lose the Warriors, they lose the Raiders, they lose the A's.
they have like a soccer team, I think. So
Oh, the
they
earthquake.
they
Well, no, the earthquakes
the
come from San
roots.
Jose,
Don't they
right?
have the roots or something like that?
The
They have
Roots.
yeah,
The
something like that.
Roots. I
Yeah,
I never even heard of it. What is that?
yeah. I think it's like a minor league soccer team that they've got. But
What is that? What does that mean? What ROOTS Roots?
yeah, because they have the Oakland Oaks, and then
Yeah, I
they're sort of
remember that was a long
they were
time ago, but the
yeah, they were trying
Roots.
to build off of that, like their tree roots.
Oh, okay. They have their roots in Oakland. Oh, okay, I got
I
it.
don't know. Look,
Yeah, but it is kind
but
of
I
sad though.
mean, yeah, and I mean, you want to throw on top of that the fact that Cal is a terrible football team,
Yeah,
and has absolutely no traction either. It just Oakland just isn't a good city for sports. They really can't. They can't compete with the San Francisco type stuff, and without a really top notch stadium, you'll never draw any crowds. If the teams were in the World Series slash Super Bowl slash the Warriors, the
yeah,
Warriors moved to San Francisco. I don't think was a big deal because if you're in
yeah.
Oakland, you can get to San Francisco. That's not I don't
Not a
think
big
it
deal.
changed the fan base at all or anything like that.
No,
There were some people who were season ticket holders for a million years that lost their tickets when it went to
San Francisco.
yeah, Chase Center. But those tickets, once they won their fourth championship, everyone bought those seats, and so now Chase Center is sold out every night. And they don't have to worry about it. So the in the Raiders, I mean, Mark Davis is maybe one of the softest minds in
Yeah,
professional football. So he was just lured by the money and the promises of money from Vegas, and
Yeah.
and then you finally add to that, the Oakland is lured, that the A's are being lured
Yeah.
by Vegas, and the A's ownership has done everything they can to make the A's an untenable product to watch on the field. So Major League Baseball should have stepped in and forced the ownership to sell, but they didn't have the guts to do that, because every owner goes, well, what if I have a bad
Yeah,
set
exactly.
of games?
Yeah.
Then they'll force me to sell.
So what do they do? What do they do with the Coliseum? Just make it day on the green concerts for everyone?
No, they're gonna. I'm pretty sure it's all gonna get torn down.
Yeah.
Look at Candlestick; it'll get torn down.
And housing.
Housing or business, park or something like that. I mean, all stuff that's necessary in the area. I mean,
but they'll keep Oracle Arena though, right?
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah.
That one down too, because that's not in terrible shape. But
no, it's nice, but it's totally overshadowed by Chase.
Yeah, well, that's true. Hey, Russell, we got to cut to our third commercial break. You ready? This is going to be like name that tune in one note. Okay. In 2015, Klay Thompson dropped 37 points in a single quarter. Which team was this against?
I saw the game. I watched the very game, so I know what you.
I knew you'd know this one. All right, audience, stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman. All right, Russell, 2015, Klay Thompson drops 37 points in a single quarter to get the record, of course. Which team was this against?
Well, not since Sleepy Floyd had a Warrior had such a prolific quarter. Do you remember the Sleepy Floyd game where he scored 25 points, I think?
Something like that.
In the quarter, in the fourth quarter to win. That was against the poorly misbegotten Kings, Sacramento Kings, but it was a magnificent. I watched the whole thing, and it was one of the most magnificent performances of any basketball player I've ever seen in my
And which do you remember which quarter?
Third,
yeah. I remember. Yeah, I remember the third quarter. That's not part of the question here, but I knew you'd remember that.
Well, because I saw it, so yes, I do remember that. And it was phenomenal. And but the sad part is that right now Klay is really struggling, and he's only shooting 43 from the field, 34 from three, and missing a lot of shots that the Warriors need him to make to stay in contention. The Warriors right now are struggling with 3 losses in a row, 2 losses at home, back to back to Cleveland and Minnesota. They face Minnesota, I think, tonight. I think they play Minnesota again, so that's going to be important because Minnesota is a hot team right now. It's
almost like Draymond comes back and they win one, but then they kind of start sliding again. So.
And Draymond's gotten some weird calls called against him too.
Yeah, he has. Hey, Russell, we got to end this now. So, you ready for our thought? Ready for our thoughts for the day?
Yes, okay. Or as best as I can. Hopefully, it won't cause me to get a relapse.
No, hopefully not. Okay, the first time I got a universal remote control, I thought to myself, "This changes everything." And when life gives you melons, you might be dyslexic. All right, tune in next week. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We'll be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Adios.
So long.